Doing it live. Nice. Awesome. So, well, I guess it's 3 o'clock now, but I suppose wait a minute or so as folks continue to arrive. Do you guys know? Does everyone know which week they're volunteering up at camp? Nice. Do you have any questions from a parent's perspective about the experience? No, all good. Awesome. How many people are returning to do this? I know I recognize some faces here. Sarah, you've been a nurse for us before, right? She's on mute. Hey, Max.
Yes, sorry. Yes. Yeah, I did last summer.
Yeah, that's right. And then Jenny, did you do it as well?
What? I've never done it before. I think I saw you recently at family camp. That's how you look familiar to me.
Okay, nice. And Jamie, were you with us last summer?
No, I was not. This is my first time volunteering as a parent, but my kids have gone to camp before.
Cool. Awesome. And Veronica, I don't think I recognize you from last summer. You're new for us, right?
I'm a newbie.
Awesome. Sweet. Hey, Shannon, are you returning?
I'm new. I was at family camp this last weekend though.
Yay. Awesome. Cool. Family camps are great. Cool. So I'll just make a list of y'all here, and then I won't give you a call and try to explain stuff that you already know. So without any further ado, Max, I suppose you and I are kind of going to share this here. So do you want to jump in a little bit and tell a little bit about maybe what we're doing here?
Oh, you tell me, Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
I missed that invite, and so luckily Jenny sent me that email. Thanks, Jenny. I've been busy. I worked so hard this summer, you guys. You can't imagine how hard I'm working while you guys are laying around having fun. Now, anyway, I think well, this will be. I don't want it to be boring for Sarah, because Sarah, you did it last year, and the main thing I want to tell Sarah is I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of changes from last year, other than hopefully less COVID fear going on. That's a big finger crossed there. But see, Shannon and Veronica and Jenny and Jamie. I'm sorry, Jamie, I don't know you, but I actually work with everybody else. That's a weird. That's like I'm like Zoom meeting. Look, everyone's on here except Jamie. I know you guys really well, so. They all, all these guys also know how full of crap I can be. So that's why I got to fake it here as if I know what I'm doing. But briefly here, I just want to tell everybody that Lincoln is spectacular. And he also is right there with you, literally in the same building. That's where his office is, out there at the camp. If you haven't been up to camp, I don't know, is there going to be a chance for anybody to zip up there for any kind of thing for their week? Because if there's one way to relieve anxiety, it's to go up there and check it out, I think. But anyway, if you don't get a chance to do it, don't sweat it. But let me just say this, like, I think technically I'm still the medical director. I know it's interim, but we're going on like year 3 or 4 of me being the interim director. Oh, is there an update on that?
Well, so there is.
Great.
Do you want me to do that now?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I don't have a script or anything.
Yeah, so we have moved Max on from the official sort of weight of the world on his shoulders director to more of an honorary glory role, where he supports and plays a large role in helping to facilitate and set up, but is not burdened with the task of approving and signing our standing orders. And so we have a doctor that will be is at Cascade Medical. Her name is Katie. She's super cool. And this is the first year she is actually reviewing our standing orders, but nothing more than that, Max. She's simply going to put eyes on them and sign them and also be added to our insurance, so that she has that continued coverage. And I don't think we have any plan of taking you off it, Max, unless you really want it. too, but I think in your sort of support role that you play with the health center here, having that insurance makes sense anyway. If there's no cost on it to you, we can continue that conversation offline if you want. But we have been fortunate to have Max play a large role in helping us at camp, and there's no way without a fight I'm letting that go.
Well, thanks for being nice. But let me tell everybody, I know that Lincoln has sent out a copy of those standing orders, so you guys have them, but there will be a hard copy of this in the wellness center. That's what I call it, the infirmary sometimes, but it's the wellness center. It's up in the lodge. It's sitting there, the standing orders are there, but my phone number is sitting there. The one I'm looking at right now, it's on there. But please, I really mean when I say 24/7 all summer, call me. And the reason I say that is not because I'm an expert, you guys, everybody but Jane knows what a goofball I am. But I do have a long history with the Y. I literally have been going up there and doing stuff. I looked it up a little bit. I think there's only been 2 summers since 2009 that I haven't spent at least a week there, but there's been a few summers where I spent 3 or 4 weeks doing everything that you guys are going to do, which basically is show up on Sunday, ready to go, fired up, and then you're the nurse from 12 or 1 when you're checking in people on Sunday all the way till midday Friday. It's kind of a routine. I know Sarah knows what I'm talking about, but it's not, I don't want to say it's boring, but being bored all week is exactly what we want. We want the nurse to be sitting around going, dang, this is so boring. What am I doing here? That's the ideal thing. And I hope you guys can imagine what I'm talking about. But I won't give you guys history lessons because you guys all know how I could talk forever. But over the years, it was boring when we didn't have Wi-Fi and when the phones wouldn't work. So you couldn't even get a call from your family, or you have to walk up the hill to make the cell phone work. Those days are over because we have Wi-Fi there. So feel free to bring your laptop, even though we have a desktop computer there, but it's easier just have your laptop, you hook up to the Wi-Fi. And then I'll just say this, after you check in and then you drive up there, I don't know if we're gonna get into the details of maybe somebody going up and checking in there, but that's some details Lincoln can explain later. But the basic gist of being the nurse at Horse Thief is you get up there Sunday, drive up there after you checked in, or you go up there to check in kids when they're checking in at camp. Then you stash your stuff in the wellness center. If you haven't been there, just so everybody knows, there's essentially a bedroom in the back with 2 beds. And then there's the very large bathroom with the handicapped shower that, obviously the kids can go in there and do whatever you need them to do if you have an emergency, but that's your shower, especially after 9:30 or 10, business is slow at the wellness center. So I always take a shower at night and then hit the sack. And and then there's the whole gender thing that you've probably read about in the volunteer packet, but I sleep in my van most of the time because there's not a lot of guys other than John Dunn that Sarah worked with. He's the only guy on our list, and I don't think he's coming sadly this summer.
No.
But then the basic routine, just so you guys know, as you're looking through standing orders, the standing orders are really what to do in case of emergency. Should I send them to the ER or not? And that's the thing I want to tell everybody. You can always call me if you have an issue, but I'm pretty sure that you guys will, after maybe a few hours with Lincoln, you'll trust him to be the guy to call. But here's something that I think is important to know, that when things are coming at you from a situation standpoint, if it's a bona fide emergency, you guys know, you're looking at it and you're like, man, there's nothing in the armoire of our first aid kit that can deal with this. So we're calling Cascade, and they're either coming to get the kid or someone's going to take him in. It's always faster just to drive them into the ER. That's not a hard decision. I think the hardest decision usually is, should we call the parents, and should we tell the parents that they should come get them or not? And just, if you guys haven't been doing it for a long time, I would totally punt that to Lincoln every time. If you're like, it could be COVID, it might be broken or not, the tooth came out, should we stick it back in, or should they go to a dentist? Those things come at you. Just trust Lincoln, because Lincoln's a lot more familiar with the meat of those policies. And I also feel strongly, if you're thinking about should you call a parent or not, I think it's always good to just, ask Lincoln, run it by Lincoln first. Lincoln will always support you. I promise he'll support you, but he knows the ins and outs of how to talk to parents as far as not scaring them if you don't want to scare them. If you want to scare them enough to come get their kid, that's a rare occasion. But if you really don't want that kid hanging out and you want to say, please come get your kid, I can't stand him anymore, that's a rare situation, but sometimes it happens. But I just want to say, I want to sell Lincoln hard to say he's the best resource ever. But you guys can always call me because, or other than, I'm actually going to Norway on the 23rd. So whoever's up there between June 23rd and July 4th, you can call me, but yeah, it's going to cost me a lot of money if I answer it. So it better be important, but I promise I'll answer if you guys need me.
Yeah.
So anyway, the standing orders are kind of like, you can whip those out if you need them, but I bet you go the whole week and you really don't need to look at them. But I would read through them prior to going up there, just so you're familiar with, like, if someone has lice, or, you know, should you use a shampoo or not, or like different rash, you know, there's just things that you may do, but it's just like the standing orders kind of are generic enough to not be too specific so they can last year after year, but they are kind of specific with some kind of high intensity first aid. You guys can all put on Band-Aids and you can pull slivers out of fingers and toes with the tweezers. That's the bread and butter of your first aid stuff. But, you know, making kids who are, you know, feeling horrible because they're dehydrated and they just need to go sleep for an hour or two, or someone just threw up and now they don't know what to do. Well, sit them down and watch them for a half hour. And then when they realize they're missing out and having fun and they want to leave, that's awesome. And then just always make sure that we document stuff in our, I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the software, but here's another question for Lincoln. Do we have a health lead yet? I don't know that.
Oh, well, I would like to invite someone who's on this call if they feel comfortable turning on their camera. Her name is Ireland, and she is our health center lead. And you can tell by the periodic table in the background that she then Ireland, you're actually going to school to be a nurse, right?
Yeah, it's like kind of like, I'm not quite sure quite yet, but yeah, it's definitely like one of those paths that I think I'm considering. I'm a CNA right now, so. Oh,
sweet. Well, that's awesome. Welcome, Ireland. I'm very happy that you've accepted the challenge to be the health center lead. So I mean, Ireland, if you want to say what you want to do, but let me just say, here's my hope. Here's my hope Ireland will do. And then I'll see if she's up for it. That's a horrible way to do things. But traditionally, the model is that the health center lead, in this case, is going to be Ireland. Ireland's been up there for a few weeks. As the summer progresses, Ireland is pretty savvy with how to document stuff in the computer, pretty savvy with where things are and what we might need to order from Walmart or something for the next week. It's always nice to kind of give everybody a heads up that we're out of this. We're almost out of that. All the things that are in our gigantic first aid kit on the wall. But what I want to reassure everyone who hasn't done this, that even though you guys are the nurses, Ireland is kind of like the person who's there to kind of guide you around and do things. And I forgot how many years ago we went to this model, but please trust me, everyone, when even though Ireland hasn't done this for a whole summer, Ireland is going to do some orientation. Ireland's going to be there. And the biggest thing is, week to week, Ireland is going to be the consistent person. And Ireland, I know you're not a nurse yet, but you're going to be, I think it's easier. I've done this before, and you know, I've been going there a long time, but I think it's easier if I show up this summer, I'm going to let Ireland tell me what to do. I'm very comfortable at saying, hey, Ireland, you're the boss. What should we do? And it works better that way. I don't want to tell everybody how to plan their whole week, but please trust me that the health center lead, especially by week 4 or 5, I even though I haven't met you, Ireland, I know that's going to be the model that we all want. And I'm pretty confident that it'll shape up that way. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that, Ireland?
I mean, yeah, lots of responsibility, but yeah, no, I think like as time goes on, I'll definitely like get more used to how things work and everything like that. So if anybody needs anything, I'm here.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. But the main thing I think that is important is in the past, we have spent a lot of time trying to train all the volunteer nurses on how to chart in the computer. I don't want anyone to be worried about that. We always document everything we do, every med we give, every time we do any first aid, especially anytime we give a PRN med, or not PRN, but an OTC med that, you know, almost every parent has signed a permission slip to give, although Ireland will know where to check for that just in case it's an issue. But whenever there's something going on, we always document it. But that used to be the biggest source of stress for our volunteer nurses, is how to make sure we chart everything, get it documented. That's a big part of the health center lead role, is to, you don't have to do it, but you're right there, especially like after breakfast is over and we have the wave of med giving. Just so everybody who hasn't done it before knows that it's, you know, between the hours of 7:30 and 9, that's go time at the drive-in window now, where the kids will swarm in and get their breakfast meds, and that's 70% of your work during the day. You know, knock on wood, that's going to be the big day, is giving your morning meds, and hopefully you don't have any major emergencies coming in. But breakfast, lunch, you know, maybe some early evening, and then especially bedtime meds, those 4 times, that's going to be the beef of getting that all documented. But traditionally, the health center lead's kind of in charge of that. And then the last thing I wanted to say to everybody, but I'm happy to take questions, is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, those are just kind of like the big days of meds, and then kind of morning hanging out. And then there's lunchtime meds, which usually isn't that much, knock on wood, not that much. And then there's the afternoon time. Then there's maybe some dinner time meds. And then there's usually some kind of post-dinner activity. And then usually around 9, somewhere between 8:30 and 9:30 is the swarm of evening meds, when kids come in and then they open the door and the bugs come in and you get mad at them and all that goes on. But that's kind of like your day, the flow of the day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And one of the things I want to stress is that hopefully we're going to make sure that every week has 2 nurses there. The weeks are a lot better if there's 2 versus 1. And I can tell you from experience, having 2 nurses is 10 times better than just being the only nurse. And when there's 220 campers, like, I mean, you can do it, but there's not a lot of downtime. But when you have 2 nurses, I really think it's nice if the 2 of you guys agree that someone's going to kind of take the morning off after you get all your breakfast meds delivered. Someone's going to have a little 2 to 3 hour break, and then the other person will have the afternoon break. And, you know, bring in your bike, or maybe go sitting by the waterfront, or, you know, with permission of lifeguards and the timing, maybe getting in a boat. But that depends on the activities. Don't assume you can just take a boat. Please don't do that. But, you know, there should be lull time for you, so you're not on from 7 to 10 p nonstop. That can be stressful by Wednesday or Thursday. So 2 nurses, try to take at least a 2 or 3 hour break where you literally get out of the wellness center and, you know, just enjoy yourself. Even if it's a little drizzly, you can just get out and go for a walk. I think the camp is beautiful. I think the mountain bike trails are just waiting for you to try if you bring your own bike. There's some bikes there, but if you have your own bike, bring your own bike. There's plenty to do for that 2 or 3 hour break you get. And then, you know, by week 1 or 2, Ireland will be kind of getting on you to kind of get on Thursday night, get everything together so that everything's organized so that we can get meds back to parents on Friday morning, you know, i.e. who's getting on the bus, who's going to get picked up at camp, all that nuts and bolts. Ireland is going to be the resource for that. And then, you know, Friday you get to go home and you bask in how much fun you had, and you just can't wait for next week. In fact, you're probably like telling Lincoln, hey, you know what? I could probably show up next week if you want, because I had so much fun. I hate going home. I promise it'll be that way. Unless it's raining the whole week, or if it's like 100 degrees all week, then maybe you won't be saying that. Anyway, that's all I kind of wanted to say, but I'm happy to answer any questions or have Lincoln chat about whatever.
I've got some new things for camp too.
Right.
Just want to make sure everyone's up to date on stuff here. So first off, we're super excited about Ireland. We think she's the perfect person for this role. In fact, about 8 months ago, we started trying to convince her to do this. So we're very excited. She also has years of experience at camp as well, and so she's a resource for any questions like, what's this that I just heard of? Or like, can I go to the waterfront? Ireland's going to know everything about where things are and the pace of the week as well. And like, when to keep your eyes out for stuff and when to maybe watch for other sorts of things. We bought 2 iPads. They're brand new, and they are assigned to the health center. And so we have a software called Circuitry that we pay to use, and that's our database for every camper. And it's really the one-stop shop for every input. It does have a health center software that operates within the database of the registration. So parents register, they input their medical information for the camper, and that populates to this this service software for the health center. And you go to the meds page, and you have a list of, you can set the table on the left to breakfast not administered, and it gives you a list of kids. And so when a camper shows up, you say, "What's your name?" Brian. You type in Brian on a little thing that shows Brian has 2 meds to take at breakfast. And so you can check that you administer, and you don't actually have to sign anything because your login is your signature. You're logged into your portal on the software. And so the fact that you checked it, it's your signature on it. And so it's pretty nice like that. It does have an incident management software. So what you can do is if a kid comes in, "Hey, what's your name?" Like, you just look up the kid's name, and on that that sheet where that kid is right there on the page, you'll be able to immediately see, we have a bee sting allergy right there, or any kind of a red flag that the camper has medically will flag in the system when you type the camper's name into it. And so you can be primed with that. Maybe nothing that is related to a previous sort of condition, but you can input the incident right there, which is really good, because if you have a camper that comes in a few times for a stomach ache, and it hits in the morning and hits in the afternoon, then it maybe hits in the morning the next day, you might think that they've only been there twice, but maybe they've been there 3 times, and that can be a system to catch or flag the appendicitis potentially if it comes through. So pretty cool with that as well. We do also have a separate incident management software that's through our association. And typically speaking, this would be something that Ireland takes care of. And it's basically anything that could potentially lead to a child going into the hospital. So like a scratch that's deep enough that theoretically could get infected 2 weeks from now, or a week from now if it never heals, or anything that could lead down that path where it's a rolled ankle. And so it could theoretically, we want to do an incident report for, and Ireland would be doing that in the evenings. So very simple with that procedure as well. We also have more COVID tests than you can shake a stick at. And so we are very, very excited about being able to administer COVID tests when and if necessary. We would ask, though, that we do a parent phone call before doing the tests. We all know the state that we live in, and there's a lot of different views about that. And if a parent wants to come pick up their child in lieu of us doing a COVID test, we want to offer them the opportunity to come do that. And so we'll work with them on that. I did build a library in the health center. So we got a bunch of books donated from a used bookstore downtown Boise with a bunch of really cool kids books and teen books. Sometimes you get the kid that's got the headache. Sometimes you get the kid that's sick that needs to go home, and they're waiting for their parent for the half day. And so we gave them the entertainment. The cool thing about this is we have more Ziploc bags for the meds, again, than the Western Hemisphere. And you can take a book once a kid's done with it, Ziploc it, throw it on the shelf for a week, 2 weeks, and then it comes back in. You just put a date on the outside of it so we can stop contagions potentially if a kid is infected with something that could be contagious that way. Just full disclosure, anytime anyone asks me, do you think this is something we should call home on? My answer will 99% of the time be yes, because I operate in the world of zero surprises. And I feel like anything that is you think we could, it's always easy to make that phone call that says something like, "Hey, we didn't really know if this was big enough to give you a call about, but we wanted to make sure you weren't surprised by anything." And I am super, super comfortable making those phone calls. I do about 10,000 a day. And I will also be training Ireland, and she will be competent in those as well as all of our lead staff. So we do have, the way our structure is, 2 counselors per cabin, 1 unit leader per village, so a group of cabins. And then those unit leaders report to Daniel, our camp director, and Daniel reports to me. So there are ample people above the counselor level that are very, very comfortable jumping on the phone with parents and just chit-chatting them about what's going on and de-escalating as well, potentially if it's necessary. We always, we don't want to transport kids in our own vehicles if possible. So if a kid does need to go to the hospital, I'd rather punch 911 and have the ambulance come pick them up than for us to drive a Max. That's an adaptation. If we can avoid the liability of putting them in our vehicles, then it's something that we just want to do. See, check-in is so much fun. There are tons and tons of parents showing up super nervous and excited, and the bubbles, and it's like the first day of school. And so we always like to make sure, this is the reason we bought these, is to make sure that meds check-in is incredibly efficient, as efficient as we can possibly make it. So anything we can do to continue to make that efficient, we want to do. We ask if you are ahead of time to communicate with Ireland. In Ireland, you'll get everyone's contact information. And if you're going to be meeting us in Boise for the check-in, we ask at 10 a.m. to show up at the West Boise YMCA parking lot. We have some new procedures for check-in that we're doing down in West Boise to hopefully streamline some stuff and make it as painless as possible and super quick. We always like to avoid lines whenever possible. So 10 a.m. will give you a little bit of time to get set up and get ready, and get prepared for that check-in to actually occur. And then we're gonna work through the check-in. A lot of nurses, you know, you're welcome to, if you want to, jump on the bus with us and come up on the bus. They are school buses. And if you're familiar with Highway 55, maybe you don't want to take a school bus. I can respect that. And so a lot of nurses will show up to the West Boise YMCA, help with check-in, get everyone on the bus, jump in their own vehicle and drive their own vehicle. And if you're bringing your kiddo to camp, that your child is more welcome to jump on one of our buses. And sometimes the kids like to drive the bus, ride the bus, or sometimes they want to drive with you. Either is fine. We don't need to even know. If they're on the buses, we need to know, but it's not important to know ahead of time for us. Let's see. So we've added some new supplies to the health center this year. We went out and we bought a bunch of used clothing, and we've stocked them in tubs in the health center. So oftentimes kids will come, and whether they have an accident or maybe they might be an equity thing where they might be not in the right shoes, it might be causing a problem or whatnot. We want to make sure everyone is comfortable at camp. So you might have eyes on a situation that we might not be totally aware of. For example, sometimes kids come, refugee kids, not wearing socks, you know, and they have hot spots on their feet. And we have stocked socks, so we can just give them enough socks for the week. And they can be fine. Anything like that, we should have supplies in the health center backstopped to be able to make sure people are comfortable. We also have more maxi pads and tampons than, again, the Western Hemisphere. I accidentally bought another supply for this year, not knowing we had tons from last year. So we have half the closet is now those, so we should be good. And so that's also important as well, especially for, you know, young girls who might be experiencing it for the first time coming into the health center. That might be something that occurs. So let's see. I would say one hot tip item that would be important is that we moved benches to the outside of the dining hall this past year. And that idea is that we want a waiting area for the health center to be outside. So if a kid comes, oftentimes they're just coming in through the door, right? And then but the seeing room is the entryway in the health center. So we put the benches on the outside, and we want to empower you as nurses and also as Ireland's to be able to say, guys, could you go wait outside? And kicking those people out so that you have if 1, 2, 5, 10 people in that space and it's not operable. And so control that space. We want to encourage you to control that space. It's easy to just get to a point where you're flustered and realize, why are there 10 people in here? You know, so manage that on the front end in Ireland. This is maybe something you can catch on to ahead of time and train our counselors to do. You know, kids take a seat on the bench, counselor knocks on the door, mentions, explains, and y'all can triage based on that. Let's see. Yeah, and most of what we're doing is catching on site and kicking upstairs when necessary. The couple of things we really want to watch out for are contagions. Obviously, COVID falls into that. And so we would do tracking if we ever came across it. The other thing we really want to track is vomiting, because summer camp, though it hasn't operated like this in the past couple of years because masks are great, but we do kind of sometimes, come across like a cruise ship, in the sense that if a norovirus were to hit us, it can burn through us real quick. And so anything we can do to track vomiting, we want to. If we cannot source vomiting back to an obvious source, for example, I threw up. Well, how many grilled cheese sandwiches did you have? 17. Okay, well, that's an obvious connection right there. Or like, I threw up. Did you have the bug juice this afternoon? Yes, I did. Was it concentrated and not diluted because the water was broken on it? Yes. So you just drank a bunch of syrup. Okay, we know. And so that's the obvious kind of connections right there. I'll go case by case on that, but I'm a stickler where if we can't find the obvious source, that I don't want to play ball with norovirus. And norovirus looks a lot like, it doesn't need a buildup. It can just be, just I feel fine, vomit. And then it's contagious across. So we want to, anytime there is a vomiting situation, obviously we keep it like a bloodborne pathogen situation, but I'm going to be pushing for that kid to go home. Because I've been on a property where it was bad. So we want to avoid that when possible. But I always say, I'm going to double down on this, Max. If you have a bike, bring it, because it's a beautiful property to ride a bike around on. And if you're not, then we also have the mules. Anything we can do to integrate you into the feeling and the experience as well, the better. Ireland, you can help connect with Steve to make sure meals are there, because sometimes breakfast is tough if you have a big meds morning, like to make sure that there are food set aside. But yeah, that's basically it. Pretty obvious stuff here. We operate off of the CDC. We're all in green, so we're green. If we go to yellow, it's a staff masked. And so we'd ask it as a volunteer, obviously, that you mask as well. With that, if we go to red, everyone's masked and distanced. We're operating this summer programmatically the same way we did in last summer during COVID. I don't think parents are going to know the difference, but we're doing a cohorted model. So campers will stay in their cabins and they will rotate on programs in a cabin. And so there isn't the mix and mingle that's going on across camp right now, which should allow us to isolate a case if it were to happen. That's the theory. We just don't feel like we're out of it yet. And so we will go to a choice model probably next year, hopefully, because I think it's a better camp model. But right now, I think the kids are liking the program that we're putting out. And so there isn't a pressing need to shift it. So we're operating a cohorted model on camp property, but also not requiring masks. Encouraging if they want to, we have them available, not requiring it on property and in our programs. But the cohorted thing really allows us an opportunity to keep kids spread out a little bit. I don't think they know the difference on it. So cool. Any questions at all I can answer for you? Max can answer.
Do you want to explain the Trudy system for people who haven't been there?
That's a cool, yeah, for sure. I'll definitely do that. So buddies are 2, Truddies are 3, a group of 3. And the idea is that we never, ever, ever, ever will be alone with a kid. We're never one-on-one. And this is something that the YMCA adopted at about a decade ago across the country. And it is a direct response to the recognition that there's an epidemic of child abuse in our country, goes unnoticed and undocumented. And what we really wanted to do was create a system whereby we're protected for the long haul. Our rules and our structures make it so that it is significantly difficult for something to occur on property. We realize that over the next 100 years, because I hire 80+ people a year, rule of numbers, there's a chance I'll hire someone with a tendency that's bad. Like it's a rule of numbers. I'm going to operate for 100 years. I'm going to hire 80 staff members each year. And at some point, someone's going to come in our doors as a staff member with these tendencies. I can't control that. What I can control is how likely it is to occur on property. And the way we control that is rule of three. And rule of three is essentially, again, like I said, there's no buddies. There's no one-on-one that occurs at any point in the entire program delivery on property. So you might hear on the radio, can I get a Trudy to the climbing tower? And what that means is, can I get a third person here because our third needs to go and run and do something? And I've said this before, Ireland's a testament to this as well. I'm sure, Max, you've heard this before too. We spend a week of staff training at the beginning of the summer, and I tell my staff right outright, if this is something that doesn't sink in and you can't necessarily grasp the significance behind why we're doing this and that it is important, then I should not let you work here. And so I haven't had to do this ever before, but like I say to my staff members, look, if you forget and you're it once, we're good. If you continue to forget, you can't work here. Like this should, alarm bells need to be going off in your head if a situation occurs and need to be working to get out of it as soon as possible. That's the way we need to train our staff to think. They can't be nonchalant about one-on-one situations. And oftentimes my staff members ask me, how close is one-on-one? And they say sometimes, well, what if we're on opposite sides of a soccer field and I'm watching you? Well, can you attest in front of a court of law that you knew what was being said? Not really. So we say one-on-one is hearing and seeing. So close enough that you can hear and see. And I am very strong on this, but I think it's important to keep our kids safe in a nursing situation, right? In your worlds that you are, this really isn't necessarily something that gets encountered too often because Ireland is present. And you have your other nurse there. Oftentimes, counselors are also very, very aware of this. You won't have a counselor leave a kid with you. They'll stick around. Just to make, and they'll be the ones that initiate making sure that there's a Trudy. Maybe week 1 or 2, there's some counselors that kind of slip. You know, they drop the kid off. Cool, I'm going to go to the basketball courts, and you guys say, nope, stick around. I'm getting a Trudy, and we got to make sure we get that. I'm 2 walls over, and I'm happy to pop over, and I'm a good conversationalist, so we can hang out. And that's super simple. Also, Ireland is around as well. So if there's 1 kid that shows up plus Ireland, that's 3. And so that's super simple. In the situation that might occur where there's a privacy need, I've had campers that have come to camp before where they, swimmer's itch doesn't occur in areas that are typically easy to notice in a public setting, right? You might need some privacy to be able to inspect that. Super simple. I always just make sure that the parents know. And hey, we got my nurse here. Like, it looks like there's some swimmer's itch that's in a private area. Like, I want you to know this. Like, typically we want to take a look at this, and so you're aware of it and whatnot. And if the parents like, great, take a look at it. And I usually tell them the way it's going to happen is we have a bathroom. There's Ireland is going to be there. I'm not going to be there. Our nurse, who's a female, is there. They're going to be private. They're going to take a look at it. They'll call you back with details on that as well. And so we have that capability as well. We always probably want to follow the gender rules on that too, as much as possible. What's cool about the iPads is that you can take a picture and you can send it to the parents as well. So that's something we want to do more. We have a way of doing this too, where, oftentimes cuts on the face or whatnot, where you want to have a lollipop in mouth and a smile. if it's possible, but if it's honest. And so that's always important with that, to not freak out the parents at home. But if it's something that we really want them to be aware of and see maybe before they first see their kid when they're picking up their kid, we can do that. And what's great about the iPads is it's not your personal cell phone. So that photo goes on this company-owned device, not on your personal device as well. So we think that that's important for keeping ourselves safe in this professional environment. So cool. Does that answer your question about rule of 3? Does anyone have any concerns about that or questions about that? Seem pretty logical. Yeah.
I should point out that that's one of the reasons that I forgot to mention, that's one of the big reasons that we went to really trying to have 2 nurses there, because I can tell you from experience, it wasn't last summer, but 2 summers ago during the COVID summer, I did 2 weeks by myself, and that's hard work, but that Trudy thing was a real pain, because it's really hard to stick with that if you're the only nurse there. So yeah, that's another reason that we really want to try to get everybody matched up with 2 nurses. It makes the Trudy system very easy. During, especially in the evenings, it's always the evenings that I think is the big time, when you have multiple visits from different groups and all that.
Yeah. Ireland also has a radio, and so Ireland can call for help at any given point in time. Additionally, this is a new thing, but we have wall-mounted radios, and we put them in all of our cabins on camp property. So if there is a need for some assistance in a cabin, maybe a diabetic situation where someone needs some assistance, they have wall-mounted radios and they can immediately contact us. Real brief on that, they have 3 channels on the radio, 1, 2, 3. And our handheld radios, if they're flashing orange, mean that they're scanning, basically spying on channel 3. 1 and 2 are handheld radio channels. If you have to have a longer conversation, you say, hey, this is Lincoln to Ireland. Ireland says, go for Ireland. You're muted, sorry. Yeah, and then from there, we go, hey, Ireland, can you bump to 2? Someone's ringing.
Bump it to 2.
And then Ireland would bump to 2. And then at that point in time, you say, hey, Ireland, longer conversation on channel 2, blah, blah, blah. So if you wanted to have a chit chat or share a bit of more information, we keep that off channel 1's airways. And then on channel 3 is the wall mounted channel. And so channel 3, if you're on handheld and you go to 3 and talk, it's a PA system for all of camp. So every wall mounted unit across camp will announce whatever you say. But if anyone from a wall mounted unit talks, it's blocked by other wall mounted units and it only goes to the handhelds. So at nighttime, they can say to us, hey, we need some help in Chinook cabin, right? And then typically we just won't respond on the radio. It's super loud. I tell the counselors, don't worry, we heard you, right? But if they need a response, I'll just click on the radio a couple times. But if I respond back and it's like 11 o'clock at night, then I'm like, hi, Chinook. Like, I'll be there in a second. Everyone on entire camp property is being woken up. So I try not to do the shots, but that's the way it's set up. So cool. What else? All right. So currently in our system, we have 2 nurses for every week, except 2 weeks that we're still working to find a second nurse on. And it's week 4 with Veronica. We're looking to find a second nurse. We haven't given up. We're continuing to look, and we have some leads. But if you have some friends or some people that might want to come with you.
I've been asking everyone.
Oh yeah, okay. We're still working on it. We'll find it though. And then week 5, Jamie, that's you. We have 1 nurse. And Max said that he would get off the plane from Norway and come right up to camp. In fact, I'm pretty sure he promised us that.
What week is that? Like, what's the dates of 4 and 5?
4 and 5 is the 4th of July week and the week after that.
So my dates are the 6th to the 9th, Max.
And then the 10th through the 15th.
Wait, 6th to the 9th of July?
Yes.
Is that family camp? What's going on with that?
It's a 4-day short camp.
Well, okay. I don't want to promise. If you're in a real jam, I could do that.
Okay.
And then the next week, next week's a maybe, because I'm supposed to go to Salt Lake City on the 14th, but stay tuned. I mean, I can help somehow. Yeah. But, you guys know you don't want to hang out with me all week, because it'll be brutal. You want to recruit your friends to
Yeah.
help you, because I'll torture you with my stories. Lincoln knows I got literally 1 million stories about camp, and I'm happy to recite them in alphabetical order for 48 hours nonstop. You guys all know, everybody who's works with me knows what I'm talking about. So try to recruit some new blood.
I would say also too that if for any reason Max wouldn't be able to do it, we would just get another staff member in addition to Ireland to be allocated to that space, where you as the nurse could operate as decision maker, but slapping band-aids and whatnot, you could be delegated. So we could still pace you the same way and keep that structure of safety and Trudy easily. So that's the fallback if we need to. Also, I have been doing this camp directing thing for 16 years now. And while I don't think I've seen everything, I've seen quite a bit, and I feel like I'm pretty close to it at this point. And so I'm always happy to jump into the health center and help out as well. So cool. Well, we are very excited about this, and we can't wait to get camp coming and going here, and it's going to be a really good summer. We feel very strongly about that. So with that, I did record this. I don't know how that's going to work. So I can download this, and I should be able to send it to the folks who weren't here. So if anyone, yeah. And then Jenny, Shannon, and Sarah, if y'all know any other folks that might be interested, I'm sure that Veronica and Jamie are nice people. And they both smiled, so who knows? But I'm sure we can, they would appreciate that second if it's possible. I would say this too, at times we've operated with an EMT as a second. And so if you do know any EMTs that would be interested, that's definitely something that, I mean, honestly, like I said before, second staff members, so as long as they can first aid cert, then they can float that boat right there too. The RN, we feel very comfortable. The benefit of the RN outside of the knowledge and experience and judgment comes with looking at the meds that are delivered and treating them accordingly as well. I should say there is a fridge in the health center as well. So any meds that would need to be locked up, we would want to fridge those as well. So cool. I'm super excited about this. It's going to be good. Is that a question from anyone? No? Okay.
Oh, the only other thing, and I know you touched on this last year in the orientation, was homesickness and how nurses should not do that.
Disengage.
Send them back to their cabin and have them let the lead know and have them do it.
Yeah, so this is kind of sometimes a problem in the early part of the summer where counselors are still sharpening their tools on homesickness. And like what tends to happen, I call the health center the black hole for homesickness, because once they get in and they get on the bed, then you have to rationalize them getting out of bed, and you're just working up the hill. And so like without being, too much of a toughie, like I would say if it's not a need for them to use your bed, I would limit that as much as possible. Though that being said, on the counter side of that, there are some kids that just need a nap. And the health center is a great place for kids to take a nap. And sometimes that recharge nap gets them right back out there, and that's fine. So I would just use those strategically and not just reactionarily. Or impulsively in terms of tools. And if you suspect it's a homesickness situation, I would all right, so we're all about the love at camp. We want kids and we want you to make connections with the kids and create those sort of things. But if you become the anchor and you're in the health center, you might be giving yourself some work that could hold you back from other situations. And so I would say definitely make those great connections with kids. But if a camper is going to be clingy / needy on you, then I would say it's tough. They're not doing the zip line. They're not at the waterfront. They're not doing the pieces of camp that really, it makes up a big portion of their experience. And so we want to get them out and about as much as possible. With that in mind, I'm super good at this. I'm very confident in my skills on this. I have I have an ability to fix homesickness in 30 minutes every time. And it works like this. It says, hey, do you want to go on a mule ride? And they say, I don't know, what's a mule? And I say, it's that four-wheeler right out there. Do you want to go? And they go, yeah, right? They get on that mule, we do a hot lap around camp, and it just gets them completely out of their lizard brain. They're back into their prefrontal cortex, and it can kind of reset. Something about basically going on a roller coaster that gets them into just like, and then we're like, hey, you remember you were crying a few minutes and we just did this? Like, why do you think that happened? Well, maybe it's because we just shifted things up. You think you want to give it a try? Let's go for it, right? And then the mule is also out of the black hole, and it's out and about. I can drop them right back off with their cabin, boom. And so that tends to work super well. So if you ever need a kid that needs a mule ride, I'm happy to do that. One thing I would say just to be cautious of is be aware of siblings at camp. And if a child is going home, don't tell the other sibling unless the parent gives you permission to do so. Because if you tell the other sibling and that sibling has, even if they're having fun, if they have a tendency of homesickness, it might trigger it. So we always want to let that be. And on the back end of it, I'm happy to come and talk to that kid and tell them what happened afterwards. But if that kid shows up when mom's trying to pick up their kid, it's not a good situation. It happened last year. So cool, awesome. Yeah, well, that was that right there. So Max, anything else?
The only thing the only thing I think it was like when you're talking about the black hole, I think you said it really well about sometimes I think kids can get into this pathway where they're like magnets towards the wellness center, and it's not any one medical thing. That's kind of one of the arts of camp nursing. There's no like solution for every situation, but I will say, just, you guys know me, then you know I'm kind of a softie for most kids, but there's one thing I'm really hardcore about. It's the use of crutches. You know, we have crutches there, but in my years being there, that giving kids crutches, sometimes you have to. Don't get me wrong. They need crutches to go get food and stuff, but that's probably the trickiest situation. I don't have an answer for it, but sometimes when there's the dreaded ankle twist, it's not fractured, but it's pretty twisted. You've splinted it. You've been doing the rice thing, but then they really can't put weight on it. But you're not going to send them home for that. That could probably be one of the trickiest things, is not do what I've done over the years, is saying, well, I should just hang out here for a while. That as much as you want to be nice to the campers, hanging out at the wellness center, that's never going to end up over the course of a few days being a good thing. But one of the big things that really cranked it up the last couple of years is when we had air conditioning. You know, back when we didn't have air conditioning and we're just down at War Bonnet, that didn't happen because the wellness center wasn't any more fun than their cabin. But now, you know, the wellness center, especially with the AC, that can be a paradise, especially like on Thursday. So you just want to kind of set the tone. This is my opinion, is kind of set the tone that you're a great nurse and you're here to help them, but you're kind of mean and nasty. You have a surly side, and maybe it's not that much fun to hang out. I can play that old man, you know, like anti-Santa Claus. I play that pretty well sometimes, especially with certain campers that start bugging me by Wednesday. I'm nice, but maybe not that nice after a while. Just when you need to whip out your nastiness, sometimes you need to do that just to do what Lincoln's doing with his trick of getting them out. You kind of need to chase them out of the wellness center sometimes.
Bring out your textbooks and read to them. Awesome. Okay, that's a great point right there. And it's end all be all. Y'all are gonna have a ton of fun, and I hope that you get consumed by the camp culture and the joy that we're all passionate about for these programs, because really this is a the first of many, but a big thank you to all of y'all for taking the time out of your schedules to come out here and really help us provide the safe part of our program, you know, like, and keep safety our priority. This is a pretty unique thing. A lot of camps across the country hire one nurse, and that nurse stays the whole summer. And so the fact that we're able to rotate y'all through keeps the health center fresh. It keeps it sharp, and it keeps the quality of the program that we deliver very high. And so we're excited about that. We really want to keep it that way. And so obviously, if y'all see anything that we can do for improvements in the health center too, don't hesitate on that. But yeah, cool. This is a recording, so it'll be sent out. I could probably send it to everyone. Y'all probably don't want to see it. I'm gonna send it to everyone anyway, though, because it's easier to just blast the list. So, but if you really want to rewatch it, which is okay, whatever, cool. I don't have that kind of time. But stay safe, and you have my contact information in that email that I sent out. So hit me up if you have any thoughts or any questions at any given point in time. Max said it right. I pretty much live here, and this is most of my job. And what I'll do when you get here is I'll help with the check-in up on camp property, and then y'all head to the health center and organize your meds for the week. And Ireland will have a whole system. We'll talk about that when she gets up here. And I'll pretty much hang around the health center because it's not that I'm hovering for the moment of doom, but it's going to happen. It happens there. So I like to be present for it. But cool. Without any further ado, Max, got anything else? Oh yeah, Jamie, go for it. Sorry.
Is it like on the doc training? You said you could meet at West Boise or at the camp. Do you prefer either or? Like, which do they need help checking in the campers at Boise or versus the camp?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I leave that open is that there's some nurses that come from Cascade, and so they're like, you want me to drive down to Boise and then back up again? In which case, if we book it ahead of time, we'll make an accommodation. We vastly prefer, if you're in Boise, to help us out with check-in at 10 a.m. first.
Okay, so 10 a.m. at the Boise Y, right? Okay, and then as far as the camp, when we get up there is basically when we're just gonna kind of give us crash course where everything is. Is there a list that comes out of like stuff we can bring? Obviously clothes, 2 sets of shoes, blah blah blah.
Yeah, well, actually, it's the same list for kids.
The camper.
And so if you go to the parent information page, there is a package list there, and so it's the same as that. Then West Boise YMCA, so not the downtown YMCA, the West Boise YMCA is the one that we use. And it's one thing I would say too, in Ireland, we'll have this dialed in when y'all get here. So once meds have been given to you, we typically organize those meds into the system by which we administer them. So
now, does that occur at the camp or at the check-in in Boise?
At the camp.
Okay.
Yeah, because we get all the meds here, and then we have cubbies based on cabins, and so we break out those meds. So they all come in a Ziploc bag. We don't accept any medicine that's not in the original packaging, the original.
Yes, I understand.
And we do not accept any medicine that's coming internationally as well. As I have walked down that street, and turns out it's a huge liability to accept Chinese medicine.
Yeah. Mexico drugs are cheap,
Yeah, well, there's things that are legal internationally that are illegal in controlled substances. Specifically, and we just want to play ball with that. So I ask all of our international campers, if you have a prescription, get a doctor to sign a script in the United States, get it from the United States pharmacy. And then you will see this from time to time. There will be some kids, some parents that are very organized, and they've broken up the pills into pill carriers. And it's like, that's cool, but I'm not going to give your child an unmarked pill. So thank you very kindly. Could you please at least send us pictures of the label tonight? And so I'll typically go off of that so long as they have a photo of the original label that they send us. But we tend to work with parents on it and try to accommodate as much as possible. So that's important. There are some parents that persist and just really want to organize it for us. We appreciate that. We love them, thank them. We say, no, this isn't going to work. But yeah, organizing the meds, it takes a little while. Cool thing is that circuitry does because when you're receiving the med, you're entering in breakfast med, and yada, yada. And so there's no need to create the list for the week. There's no need, it's all electronic. You just pull up breakfast the next morning and all the meds that need to be taken are there. So bye, Sarah, she's gone. Yeah, okay, cool. We good? Anyone else? All right, cool. See you all this summer. Stay safe. Everyone say hi, Ireland. Welcome. It's going to be great. You're all going to be great. It's going to be wonderful. I would say if you bring a sleeping bag, bring a bottom sheet. Hot tip right there, because you don't want to stick to the vinyl mattresses. They're sanitary. That's why they're vinyl. But sometimes peeling yourself off of vinyl mattresses, like one of those things that it's not, I don't want to do that in the morning anymore. So bottom sheets are really helpful. But besides that, see y'all soon.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Stop.